What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be covering the 5 life Red Silvers Rayleigh, a fast-paced aggro leader that uses power manipulation and the 4-cost Luffy to quickly overwhelm your opponent with seemingly low-powered characters. And despite this being one of the best aggro decks out there right now, this leader has surprisingly strong defense, especially with the 0-cost Color of the Supreme Haki, which gives minus 1000 power to all of your opponent's characters and leaders for the turn. And so from leader strategy to Dawn Curve, I'm going to cover everything you need to know to either start dominating your opponent with this leader, or figure out how to play against him. Now let's get started. Also, I'm trying to release a leader guide every week, so let me know in the comments what leader do you want to see next. Thanks for everyone for suggesting Rayleigh. Rayleigh's first leader ability actually works as a restriction, as we can't include cards with 5 cost or higher within our deck. So instead, this leader will be focused on 1 to 4 cost characters, and you see we'll use his second leader ability to boost up their power. Activate main once per turn. You may reveal 2 events from your hand. Up to one of your characters with 4000 power or less gains 2000 power for the rest of the turn. This ability brings newfound value into our 1 to 2 cost searchers, since not only will we use them to filter our hand, but we can also swing 5k with them on the following turn through this leader ability. And while maintaining 2 red events in your hand might be difficult for other leaders, we also have a new set of red events released with Rayleigh that essentially works as 0-cost 2k counters. And not only that, but some of them can be activated during your turn as well by attaching active Dawn to your leader. Rayleigh is a leader that has one strategy, but we do it very well since we have so many searchers and events that allow us to filter our hand and find the pieces that we're looking for. And so this deck's entire offensive strategy is based around the 4-cost Luffy released in OP12. His on-play effect works just like our leader ability, where if we reveal 2 red events, we can play a 3k power or lower character from our hand and then give 1 rested Dawn to our leader or character. And we'll be looking to play out the 3-cost Sanji, 2-cost Sanji, or 2-cost Boa with this effect. He also gains 2000 power if you have 2 attached Dawn anywhere on the field, which means by attaching 2 Dawn to him and using our leader ability, we can turn him into an 8k power character on our turn. Which means at 4 Dawn, we can play him down, activate his effect, play out the 3-cost Sanji, and then give 1 rested Dawn to one of our searchers, and in combination with our leader ability, we'll be able to swing 5k at our opponent twice on only our second turn. And between these 2 characters and our leader ability, by simply attaching 2 Dawn to either of them, we'll be able to swing 8k twice at our opponent. Now the main drawback for decks with one strategy is what happens when you don't find that card. But this isn't really an issue for Rayleigh, since we're running so many searchers that can find this Luffy, and we don't mind playing them since we can turn them into offensive weapons. The rules also change a little bit for this leader, as generally you always want to prioritize board over life, but with this leader there are many cases where we're actually going to be going for life in game before we go for full board control. And the reason we can do this is the 0-cost event to never doubt that is power, a win condition that allows us to finish off games if we bring our opponent down to 0 life, as if we attach 2 active Dawn to our Silvers Rayleigh leader, he becomes unblockable. This leader also has a surprisingly strong offense is the best defense strategy, as since we're continuously resting these low powered characters, we'll force our opponent to clear our board before going for a life. And if they do, we can leave up a few Dawn and use Color of Arms Haki to give minus 1k power to all of their characters and leaders for the turn. We then also run some rush characters such as the 4-cost Kid and Killer and 3-cost Zoro, who add further finishing power to this deck. While aggro-heavy decks are generally viewed as easier to pick up and start playing, this leader actually has a high skill ceiling given the nature of the cards we're using. Because we're using so many searchers, it's very important that you understand which card will be the best in each scenario and the specific events and plays that you will need to overcome your specific opponent. And so first, I'll cover every card that you could run with this leader before going into my starting deck list. Starting off our searchers is Nami, a 1-cost 2k powered character that allows us to look at the top 5 cards and add another Straw Hat card other than Nami to our hand. This means we can use her to either look for our 4-cost Luffy or for a card we're going to play with his effect, as we can search for either one of our Sanjis, the 3-cost Zoro with Rush, as well as 2 of our red events, as both Gum Gum King Kong and Mulligan are Straw Hat cards. We then have the 1-cost Shaki with a similar effect, looking at the top 5 cards for either a Luffy or a red event. And if you had at least 2 Dawn and you didn't have Luffy in your hand already, this is a card you want to play because not only can we find Luffy, but we can also look for Observation Haki, which we can play right afterwards to look for him again. And of course, if we didn't find Luffy, there's still many different events we can choose from to add to our hand. Buggy is a 1-cost 3k power searcher with the on-play effect to look at the top 5 cards of our deck and add a red event to our hand. And while we can't find Luffy directly with him, we can look for Observation Haki to once again play afterwards and search for him again. But the benefit of playing Buggy over other searchers is first he's a 3k powered character, meaning on the following turn with only our leader ability, we'll be able to swing 5k at our opponent. He's also very useful and sticky on the board against slash type leaders, as he's unable to be KO'd by any character or leader with a slash type effect. This is especially useful against Zoro, who likes to rest and KO characters, as he'll be immune to any slash type character that tries to hit him. And rounding off our character searchers, we have the 2-cost 3k power Boa, who on play allows you to look at the top 5 cards and add either a Luffy or red event into your hand. But then she also has the activate main effect, where you may trash this character and give up a 2 rested Dawn to either one of your leaders or characters. This can be very useful, as once you attack with her, she'll likely be KO'd on the following turn, but you can still gain value out of trashing her and then giving 2 rested Dawn for another big swing. In addition, when you're trying to go for game and trying to find one of your events that gives power boost to your leaders or characters, you can essentially play her for free, since the 2 Dawn you spend to play her, you can then attach to one of your leaders or characters when you trash her with her effect. We then also have a searcher event, the 0 cost observation hockey, which requires you attach 1 active Dawn to your leader, and then look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and either 1 red event or 1 cost 3 or greater character. The great thing about this card is it can also search itself, meaning if you used it but didn't find Luffy or one of the targets you were looking for, you could grab it and then activate it again. This is also the only card in the deck that can find the 4 cost Kidney Killer, which can be a great card, especially if your opponent is at 2 or less life. So while we are a one-trick pony when it comes to the 4 cost Luffy, we're running about 20 different cards that can find him. This Sanji is a 2k counter, but also one of our targets with the 4 cost Luffy, as he's a very aggressive option that allows us to harm our own life in order to make him a 7k powered character. Activate main once per turn, you may add 1 card from your life to your hand. This character gains 2000 power during this turn, then give this character up to 2 rested Dawn. This means he turns into a 7000 base character, and we could also use our leader ability to turn it into a 9k power swing. This is fantastic for defensive or slow leaders, as we can get aggressive in early turns and not allow them to make it to their late game strategy. This is also the MVP and the card we are looking for into our worst matchup against Enel. This is because Enel's strategy is to starve us, forcing cards out of our hand and into our life, but we can use this effect to fight against that and keep cards in our hand. Is this going to give us the edge to win? No. It's still going to be an uphill battle against this leader, but it is going to give us a little bit of a fighting chance. And if you are playing against Enel, I would recommend activating this ability on the same turn you play him, just to start getting cards out of your life and into your hand, since a lot of Enel's cards lose power the less life you have. The 3 cost Sanji is the highest powered character we can bring out with our 4 cost Luffy, being a base 6k powered character on our turn. And if you're able to keep both this and the Luffy on your field for the following turn, you're going to quickly overwhelm your opponent with multiple 7 to 8k swings. And while he'll revert back to a 3k character on your opponent's turn, when he's KO'd, you draw an additional card, making him kind of like a pseudo-searcher since he'll replace a card in your hand when he's KO'd. And on later turns when you still have Dawn up, a 5k swing actually won't be enough to KO him, since you could use one of your counter events to give him 2000 power and then minus 1000 power to whatever 5k character or leader is attacking. And in general, I'm feeling very good about my game whenever I'm able to play him alongside the 4 cost Luffy at 4 or 5 Dawn. The 3 cost Rush Zoro is a great way to keep applying pressure in later turns, especially once our board has been cleared when we might need that 1 extra swing in order to finish out a game. He's also searchable by both our 1 cost Nami and our event searcher. And you might see some players include this 3 cost Jinbei instead of the 3 cost Zoro, as he effectively turns into a 5k powered character, but the main difference most players run Zoro is just because we can search him with the 1 cost Nami in case we miss on a search with Luffy. And in terms of non-searchable rushers, we prefer using Kid Killer since he's able to become a 7k powered character as long as our opponent is at 2 or less life, which should be relatively quick given the fast-paced nature of this deck. We then have the 4 cost Luffy, who I did touch on in the intro and is the centerpiece of this entire strategy. We're looking to play him as often as we can, often multiple times in games, as he's often our best play at pretty much any Dawn when we can play him. He's also our easiest character to defend, since even on our opponent's turn, he'll be at 6k base power as long as we have 2 attached Dawn anywhere. You want to just make sure that the attached Dawn is either to him or our leader, since if you attach it to one of your lower powered characters and your opponent KOs them, he'll then revert back to a 4k power. Moving on to events, which for most leaders is relatively quick, but for Rayleigh is actually about half your deck. We already covered Observation Hockey, which only activates during your turn and allows you to equip 1 active Dawn to your leader and then search for a 3 cost or higher character or red event. We then run 3 other 0 cost events, these ones effectively working either as 2k counters or something you can activate for a cost. To start, we have Color of Arms Hockey, which allows you to attach 1 active Dawn to your leader and then give one of your leaders or characters plus 1000 power for the rest of the turn. Or in other words, we're getting more value from our attack since we're getting a 2000 power boost from only 1 Dawn. And then on your opponent's turn, this card allows you to treat it as a 2k counter, as you can discard it from your hand and give up to one of your characters or your Silvers Rayleigh plus 2000 power during this battle. And most of the time, we won't play this card in earlier turns, we're more saving it for a final swing when we're looking to go for game, or just to use as a 2k counter. We can activate to never doubt that is power on our turn, which allows us to attach 2 active Dawn to our leader, and then he becomes unblockable for the remainder of the turn. This is great when your opponent's at 0 life but may have a few blockers on the field, as by attaching 2 Dawn, we can go around them and attack directly at their life. This is also where Color of Arms Hockey will come into play, as if we're going for one final swing, we can use that card to give him a 2k power boost by attaching only 1 Dawn. The final 0 cost event does not have an activate main, but is our strongest counter, as not only does it give a 2k power boost to one of our leaders or characters, but if we rest 1 active Dawn, gives minus 1000 power to all of our opponent's leaders and characters on the field. Which means if our opponent had a full board and their leader ready to attack, this one card gives us 8000 power worth of counter. And this effect can stack, so if you had 3 in your hand and 3 active Dawn, you could activate them all to give all of your opponent's leaders and characters minus 3k power for the turn. This also helps us protect our rested characters, since with only 1 card we can deflect a swing that is 2k power over. Now you don't need to rest the 1 active Dawn, you can just treat this as a 2k counter like your other cards, but in that scenario I'd recommend discarding them over this, as we gain so much more value if we have that 1 active Dawn to rest alongside it. We then have the 2 cost King Kong Gatling, which gives 3000 power to one of your leaders or characters, and then if your opponent has a character with 7000 power or more, gives up to another one of your leaders or characters plus 1000 power. And you can choose the same character, so if your opponent has a 7k power character on board, for 2 Dawn we're giving 4 Dawn worth of value. And once we spend 2 Dawn to play this could be comboed with the 2-cost Boa, trashing her to attach 2 Rested Dawn, meaning we could give one of our leaders or characters 6 Dawn worth of power for only 2, which is sometimes exactly what we need to close out a game. The trigger can also be useful, KOing one of our opponent's characters with 5k power or less. Rounding off our events, we have Mulligan, which can be exactly what we need to KO one of our opponent's powerful characters, or to remove some of their chum blockers. This card is also extremely important in the Bonnie matchup, or for really any leader that uses the 8-cost Captain Kid to Fortress. This is because they'll play him down, activate his ability to rest him and force us to attack him, but then also summon out a low-cost blocker. This means to threaten this rested card, we're going to need to swing at least 8k, probably more like 10k if we're trying to force 2 cards out of their hand, and they can still intercept the first attack with that blocker. To counter this, we can activate Mulligan, give him minus 5k power, and then KO that rested blocker, who's likely a 2k power lower character anyways. And even if this doesn't KO their blocker, Captain Kid is now a 3k powered character, and we can use our assortment of actually powerful characters as well as searchers to take him out. Moving on to some tech options, we start with the 4-cost Frankie, which can be great in either mirror matchups or against leaders that use a lot of events. On your turn, once per turn, when your opponent activates an event, all of your characters gain 2000 power during this turn. This means if you're in a mirror matchup and your opponent tries to counter with any event from their hand, that it's going to effectively negate that first counter they use, since your character will get a 2000 power boost at the same time. This can also help against Gum Giant, as while it will still likely stop one swing, the rest of your board will look very scary, especially if you have searchers who are now turned into a 5k power base for the turn. And while a 4k power 4-cost stat line isn't great, if you don't need to play him, you can just use him as a 2k counter, and we can use our leader ability to turn him at least into a 6k power base. There's also the 2-cost 3k power Luffy. With a Dawn times 2, this character cannot be KO'd when battling strike type characters, and the activate main effect to give this character 2 rested Dawn. Now if this had strike type leaders or characters, I think there would be a strong argument for this, especially if there's a lot of popular Luffy leaders going around. But given the fact that it's only characters, this card will likely be KO'd on the turn after you attack with him, meaning we'd prefer to play Sanji or one of our other searchers who at least is adding a card to her hand. For our starting deck list, you can see we're running 4 of every searcher, as well as 4 of both Luffy and every card we can combo out with him. This is for consistency, as in every game we want to play out one of our 1 to 2 cost searchers into either the 4-cost Luffy with one of our combos. And we're only running 3 copies of our unblockable event and the 1k power boost event, as in some matchups they're very useful, but in other matchups we're just going to use them as a 2k counter. But if you wanted to, you could increase their number from one of them up to 4 and drop down one of your observation hockeys if you felt like you were getting enough searchers. So you can play around with these numbers and see what fits, but I would say I would always run 4 times of Conqueror's Hockey just because the defense it adds is so useful. You can also move some of your account between King Kong Gatling and Mulligan, depending if you're looking for a little more offense or a little more control. And if you're like me and just can't find Mul Pistol anywhere, you could use the 1-cost Divine Departure. It's not ideal, but it's a kind of best case scenario until you find a Mul Pistol. Moving on to Dawn Curve, this is a leader that likes to go second, but sometimes we will go first just to improve matchups into certain leaders. At 2 Dawn, we'll be looking to play 1 to 2 of our low-cost searchers, improving our hand and finding the pieces we need for the following turn, hopefully, which will be a Luffy combo. So which one should you prioritize? Well, this will depend on both what you have in your hand as well as what opponent you're playing against. If you start the match without a 4-cost Luffy in your hand, you likely want to start with a 1-cost Shaki, since not only can she add a Luffy, but we can also find a red event, which potentially could be another searcher event, allowing us to look for him once again. Nami is another backup option, allowing us to look for Luffy, but we can also add one of the 2 or 3-cost Sanjis to our hand as well, or potentially a Rush Zoro if we didn't hit on either. Our third option is then the 0-cost Observation Hockey, and while you might not like the idea of attaching an active Dawn to your leader on your first turn since you can't attack with them, think of it as a 1-cost searcher where you're resting the Dawn rather than attaching it. And the nice thing is, even if we don't hit the Luffy, but we find another Observation Hockey, we could just cast it once again and hopefully find him on the second time. We also have the 2-cost Boa, who allows us to search the top 5 cards, but since she is 2 Dawn, we're only going to search once, so if we miss with this search, unfortunately we're not going to have him. And finally, our last option here is the 1-cost Buggy, as this is more of a Hail Mary, since we can't find Luffy with a search, but we're going to hope to find an Observation Hockey that we can play right afterwards to hopefully find a Luffy. If we start the game with Luffy in our hand, but we don't have a great card to combo with him, our order will change, as now the 1-cost Nami is going to be our best bet, as we can find either the 3-cost or 2-cost Sanji. Our next best bet is the 0-cost Observation Hockey, who allows us to find a 3-cost or greater character, so we can find the 3-cost Sanji with this search as well. Shaki would then be option number 3, as we could use her to find an Observation Hockey and then hopefully find a Sanji right afterwards. And Buggy will be our absolute last option, as in a worst case scenario, we can at least combo him out with the 4-cost Luffy to at least establish 2 characters on the board, and he has the highest power. And of course, if you didn't have 2 red events in your hand, that's going to be a slight problem, so we want to use the 1-cost Shaki or 1-cost Buggy to add another to our hand. And if you already had 1 red event in your hand, you could just play Boa to look for another. We can use Nami to search, but it's going to be a bit of a reach as we can only look for King Kong or Mul Pistol. And Observation Hockey doesn't provide any value here, as even if we find a red event, we've spent 1 to look for one, so the number of events in our hand doesn't change. And now that you're well versed on which searcher to play, we'll play 1 to 2 of them on our first turn and either look for Luffy, look for a card to play alongside him, or look for some red event. At 4 Dawn, we unlock our core strategy, and we're going to be able to swing at least 5k twice at our opponent this turn when we use our Luffy combo. This is because on play, we reveal 2 red events, bring out another character, the 3-cost, 2-cost Sanji, or perhaps a Boa. But then we can give 1 rested Dawn to one of our leaders or characters, and we'll choose to give it to one of our 2k powered searchers, bringing them up to 3k power, and then we can use our leader ability to make them into a 5k power attacker, as then we can attack with both them and our leader on this turn. If you had Buggy on the field, you could actually swing 5k with simply using your leader ability, and then use this rested Dawn to make your leader into a 6k swing right afterwards. And finally, if you already had Boa on the field, you could actually attach this rested Dawn to her, swing 6k when you combine with your leader ability, and then trash her and give 2 rested Dawn to your leader, meaning on your turn 2 you swung 6k and 7k at your opponent. And the reason we trash Boa and activate her effect is at 3k power she's likely going to get KO'd on the next turn, so we might as well boost up our leader and swing another big hit. Now 6 Dawn is when we really want to crank things up offensively, as we're looking to swing with both our 4-cost Luffy, whatever character we brought onto the field with them, in addition to a low-powered searcher and our leader if we're able to. And while these characters are generally low-powered in nature, they're going to be removed on the following turn, so we want to continue to establish our board, and we'd love to play out another 4-cost Luffy if we can. But you might not always have another in your hand, so at this time, especially if you've been applying some early game pressure, you can always bring out the 4-cost Kid and Killer if your opponent's at 2 or less life, or the 3-cost Zoro to get another swing in. And you should have some extra Dawn to work with to either leave up for one of your counter events, or play out another 1-cost searcher to further improve your hand. Now it is also at this time that you could activate a Gum Gum Mole pistol to remove one of your opponent's characters, but I think most of the time we want to prioritize our own board development rather than disrupting theirs. In addition, you generally should not be countering out the first few attacks in your life. You want to save all the cards in your hand to either protect your board, or for later turns to bait your opponent into trying to go for game while allowing your board to survive. And at 8 Dawn and onwards, our strategy doesn't really change since we're only running 4-cost and lower cards. We now just have more Dawn to work with, and hopefully we're in the final stages where we can overwhelm our opponent with one of our rush characters in combination to the many attacks we have from our very strong board. And you can continue to play your low-cost searchers to find events and counter that you need to keep yourself safe. Going first doesn't change our overall game plan, it just means it takes us 1 additional turn to get to our Luffy combo since we have to wait till 5 Dawn instead of 4. This is also the preferred choice in the Green Zoro matchup, since at 5 Dawn we'll be able to give 2 Dawn to our leader, turning Luffy into a 6k power character and making him easier to defend on the following turn when they rest him with TCG. At 1 Dawn, we'll simply play one of our 1-cost searchers, searching for either Luffy, a card to play alongside him, or a red event. At 3 Dawn, we could play the 3-cost Sanji by himself, perhaps play the 2-cost Sanji and attach 1 Dawn to one of our searchers for 2 5k swings, or do the same thing with the 2-cost Boa. At 5 Dawn, we unlock the Luffy package, bringing him out, playing another character, and then giving 1 rested Dawn to our leader, which leaves 1 Dawn remaining, and we can either use this for another 1-cost searcher, or attach to our leader and make Luffy a 6k powered character if we were worried about him being targeted with attack on the following turn. At 7 Dawn, we have a similar focus, hopefully playing out another Luffy Sanji combo, or perhaps leading into aggro with Kid and Killer or Zoro, or using Mole Pistol for some control. It's also at this point where we'll leave up 1 to 2 Dawn and start to counter out to protect our board so we can go for game on following turns. Your ideal starting hand is going to consist of 1 to 2 red events, the 4-cost Luffy, 1 to 2 searchers, as well as either Sanji or Boa to play alongside your 4-cost Luffy. But in general, you won't start games with all of these in your hand. You're more hoping to have a 4-cost Luffy and a searcher in your hand, or a card to play alongside him and a searcher that will allow you to look for Luffy. The first strength of this leader is the fast-paced playstyle, as we can quickly overwhelm our opponents and threaten game before they have a chance to develop their own board or get to their late game strategies. In addition, we maintain a very strong hand size as we don't counter out the first few attacks, as well as many of the cards we initially play replace themselves in our hand as their searchers. This leader also has surprisingly strong defense from both the many cards we have in our hand that we can use as counter, in addition to our 0-cost event that gives minus 1k power to all of our opponent's leaders and characters. Our first weakness comes from the low-cost characters that we run, as they're all targetable by removal effects that either KO, bottom deck, or return them to our hand. And since we are a very aggro deck, we struggle into leaders that perform well into this, so matchups into NL and Bonnie can be very difficult. And since we run so many 2k events, a 5k swing or equal power swing on our characters are really annoying, since we have very little 1k counter and we'll be forced to use a 2k to counter out. Our first game is against Green Purple Luffy, and I just want to show you the pressure that this leader brings against any 4-life leader, as we can often overwhelm them before they have a chance to respond. Which is why I think we have favorable matchups into pretty much every 4-life leader outside of NL. To start, we have 2 3-cost Sanjis, 2 red events in our hand, as well as the Boa Searcher, so while it's not a perfect hand, I did like my odds of either finding Luffy and having a card to play alongside it. We start our turn by drawing Observation Hockey, and while we could play it and search for Luffy, we always want a character on the field as we can attack with them on the following turn, so we play out the 2-cost Boa. And unfortunately we don't hit our Luffy, but we do find another Observation Hockey which we can try on the following turn. At 3 Dawn, he attaches everything and swings at life, which actually adds a Luffy to our hand, which is exactly what we wanted to see. We start our turn by activating our leader ability, revealing our 2 observation hockeys, and giving Boa plus 2000 power. Something important to remember, you want to make sure you're always revealing the same 2 red events, as you don't want to reveal all the different cards you have in your hand. And so then I play Luffy and activate his effect, revealing the same 2 red events, before dropping down the 3-cost Sanji and giving 1 rested Dawn to Boa before swinging 6k at leader, which he counters with a 2k. And since we know Boa will die in the next attack, we trash her instead to swing then 7k with our leader. Bring him down to 3 life, and knowing we're going to have a massive next turn, since we're going to be able to swing both our leader and both of these characters. Our opponent then starts their 5 Dawn turn, playing down the 5-cost Sanji and Pudding, and then activating their leader effect to make him a 6k powered character and restand 3 Dawn. He then attaches 2 to leader and swings another 8k at life, which we aren't going to counter, and go down to 3. We then start our 6th Dawn turn, and while we don't have Luffy, we can look for him with observation hockey, and while we don't find, we do hit a Gum Gum pistol. And while I mentioned before that we like to prioritize our own board development, when it comes to core cards like Sanji and Pudding and Cavendish, we'll make exceptions to really slow down our opponent and get them off the board. I then attach my 1 remaining Dawn to my leader through observation hockey, adding another 2k event to my hand, and turning both my Luffy and Sanji into base 6k power characters for the turn. As always, we want to attack in ascending order, so I start things off with Sanji and swing 6k at life, bringing him down to 2. I then follow this up with a 7k swing for my leader, which gets a 2k counter. And to finish things off, I use my leader ability, turning Luffy into an 8k power character and bringing him down to 1 life. So as you can see, even though we spent 4 Dawn in an event, we were still able to swing 6k, 7k, and 8k at our opponent. And he's also in the danger zone, as we have 2 of our unblockable events in our hand, meaning if we get him down to 0 life, we have a very powerful swing with our leader that could finish off the game. He plays Sanji and Pudding and activates his leader ability before swinging 6k at our rested Luffy, which of course we will defend. He then drops down the 4-cost Zoro and swings 5k at our rested 3k Sanji. But with no Dawn remaining, I know if we keep this Sanji alive, we can easily go for game the following turn with 3 massive swings. But as I go to counter out, I think our opponent realizes his position, forfeiting the match and ending the game. Which just goes to show you how fast this can turn, as we were only about to begin our 8 Dawn turn and we already had him down to 1 life. Our second game is against Green Zoro, who chooses to go first, so we'll be going second. Our starting hand does have Luffy, but we don't have any searchers or any cards to combo out with him, so I decide to mulligan. And we get a much better starting hand, as we can start things off with Boa and then play Luffy into Sanji on the following turn. Our opponent plays the 1-cost Perona before finding the 4-cost Kuina and passing it off to us. We draw Observation Hockey for turn, and then activate Boa's effect to add a Gum Gum Mole pistol to our hand. We then end our turn, and in response to this, our opponent plays the 3-cost Tashigi, likely to protect their 5-cost Tashigi or Cavendish that's coming out on the following turn. Now I chose not to, but you can counter out at the first swing from Zoro, as we know that likely on following turns he's going to be swinging 8k at life, so it's okay to protect your life early on if you feel the need to. But anyways, I start my 4 Dawn turn by activating my leader ability and giving Boa 2k power. I then play down the 4-cost Luffy, activating his effect to reveal 2 red events, before playing down the 3-cost Sanji and then giving 1 rested Dawn to Boa as well. We then swing 6k at life, to which our opponent counters with a 2k. I then trash Boa, giving 2 rested Dawn to my leader and swinging 7k, bringing him down to 4 life. He then starts his 5 Dawn turn by playing the 4-cost Kuina from hand, which is good news for us because it means he didn't find the 5-cost Tashigi on curve. He then swings 9k at our rested Luffy, and if I had 2 counter events in my hand, I would protect him, but unfortunately we don't, so we have to let him go. He then restands with his leader ability and swings 9k at life, which we take, adding another observation hockey to our hand and bringing us down to 3. We then start our 6 Dawn turn, and we're looking for the 4-cost Luffy to play out once again. So we activate observation hockey, which unfortunately doesn't find him, but we do add another 2k counter to our hand. Luckily we have no shortages of observation hockey, so we activate another one, which does find the 4-cost Luffy, and add him to our hand. And with exactly 4 Dawn remaining, we're going to be able to play out another Luffy-Sanji combo this turn. But first I activate my leader ability, revealing 2 red events to make Sanji into an 8k powered character. I then swing 7k at the rested 1k Kuina, which is slightly overkill, but we don't want him benefiting from that ability on the following turn. From here we play out our Luffy, activate his effect by revealing 2 cards, bring out the 3-cost Sanji, and then give our other Sanji on the field 1 rested Dawn, and bring our opponent down to 3 life. He then plays down another Kuina. He apparently just cannot find a Tashigi, which is pretty unlucky for him, as he rests our Luffy once again before giving 3 attached Dawn to his leader. He then swings 9k at our rested Luffy, but we can defend that with 2 cards, and we're going to do so. As you can see with this leader, a lot of times we maintain a pretty large hand size until we get into later turns where we want to protect our characters and keep applying pressure. He then swings 9k at life, and since we did defend our Luffy, we have a 6k power character on board, meaning we can activate this trigger to remove his Tashigi. With 2 remaining Dawn, he then drops down the 2-cost Kushiro and ends his turn. With 8 Dawn, a pretty full board, and 2 Boas and Kid and Killer in hand, we're ready to apply some pressure. And since his board is looking pretty weak at this moment, I want to go as wide as possible while maintaining my hand size, so I think the first thing to do is play out both of these Boas and see what we can add to our hand. So I play the first one, looking at the top 5 cards, and then adding a 2k counter and anti-blocker ability to my hand. I then play down the second Boa, looking at the top 5 cards once again, before adding the counter that gives minus 1000 power to all of his leaders and characters for the turn. I then activate my leader ability, turning Luffy into a 6k powered base character, before swinging 5k at his rested Kuina, which is enough to get the knockout, and I decide to swing 7k with all of my remaining characters, which will still leave 1 Dawn up for my counter event. My first 7k swing with Sanji brings him down to 2 life. I then attach another Dawn and swing 7k once again, which does bring him down to 1 life. Oh, and I forgot we used our leader ability on Luffy, so this is 9k rather than 7k, and he counters with Kushiro. Our opponent then starts his 9 Dawn turn, but we have a full board of characters, Kid and Killer in hand, as well as 2 Boas on the field, meaning we'll be able to give all the Dawn we spend on Kill and Killer right back to him, meaning our opponent is in a very difficult position, and he realizes that he can't see a way to victory. And so he forfeits the match and we win the game. Thank you so much for watching. I'd hope to do another game or two, but we're running on a very tight deadline as I am going on vacation tomorrow, and I still wanted to get a video out to you guys this week. But I hope this video has given you everything you need to know to start dominating your opponents with a fast-paced Red Rayleigh leader. And if you like this video and want to see more of it, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. And let me know in the comments, where do you think Rayleigh ranks as a leader? Is he tier A, tier S, tier B? Where do you think he's falling in the current meta? And so anyways, I'm off to a vacation now. Hope you guys have an amazing week, and I'll catch you next time.